Let's set up our project that we're going to be working with the ASP.NET. What we're going to do is go into File, New Projects, get the empty web project. I'll show you a trick for getting your files into a project very easy because we're dealing with everybody and you might not have so much web experience. C# projects, we'll just call it Web Projects 1. Note that we're doing the local host again, :80, and if you need to set up your IIS, then you need to see the previous video for that, a video where I explain that. We're going to set up an empty project. It's created with no references, with nothing. And we're going to basically add existing items, and this is going to allow us to add things that we already have from a folder. That's going to allow us to very easily get this thing started, because when you're copying files over, it can get a little bit messy when you're working with IIS and web projects in general. So we want to do it the right way. We'll add existing items to an empty project. We've already seen how to create a new project as well. So we pick our web folder, and then we're going to go into web application, and we're going to change the file or type down at the bottom here to all files. And we're going to select everything here. We don't need the bin directory. We don't need anything that's called our web application 2. We don't need the .cs project file, .cs project web info, SLN for solution, or this file here. We don't need these four here. Just everything that's not going to have web application 2 in the name. That's dealing with the project itself. Then we can just add those. As long as everything's selected, we can add everything there. We're going to be asked to create a new class file. Don't do it, because these are HTML form controls that are not referencing or working with the code behind. So don't do it. Just say no. And we'll do no again. No. And anytime that pops up, just say no. Alright, so we're all set up. And it's going to be very easy to get started from here. So what we can do is we can just bring up anything we want here, HTML form, for example, and we're demonstrating anything with HC is the HTML control, WC is the web control. So we're looking at HTML controls first. So with HTML controls, we can just right-click here, anything actually, any of these pages. We can right-click and view in the browser to take a peek at that. And you can see that project information is up here where it's located, the URL, and we're browsing it and having the file open at the same time. Well, the cool thing is you push this button here and look, information is already updated there. It looks like it just is doing some DHTML stuff, but if you look at the done all the way in the bottom, that little status, it's blinking. It just did something. That actually went back to the server, got information, and refreshed our page, and it happened so fast that it didn't really seem like it did anything. So how does that work, actually? What we can do is we can just right-click and view this source here. And this is going to be, you can see that we can do some things here within this page. We just have the directive up here. If you're used to working with ASP, you can see that this is just a normal directive. It's going to just say that this is going to be ASPX information here. And within our script tag, this is where we're going to embed our script within our header. Now, this is similar to what you've done in previous things with ASP. It's the older way of embedding things into the page. We'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about code behind as well. And I'm going to tie this together. I really like doing the code behind, but a lot of people have been teaching people about not using the code behind. First, I'm going to show you how to use the embedded way, and then we're going to do the code behind, and I'll show you how to bring yourself into code behind, because I think it's great. It doesn't make it so much complicated. Now that you know C# because you went through the language, this is for people that don't know the language as well, so it's embedded into the page. And we want to get this into our regular CS files, and we want to do things a nice way. So we have this script tag here. Language is C#. Run at server. So this is getting executed on the server side. When we slide down, we're going to see that we're working with HTML controls because we don't have that ASP : prefix there. We have less than input, which is just like every other tag that we see when we write HTML, except we're doing a run at server. Run at server. Run at equals server. And then we're having on server click. This is an on server click, so this is non-standard to what we would see in HTML. So this is going to be referenced by our server side. So this is going to use the button 1 _ on click to actually do the event handling. So this is like a delegate to our event, really. If we've looked at the event videos, then we know that. So then it knows somewhere in this page it needs to do an on click. And that's button 1, the name, on click, and this is the Same thing we use with other events, object source event args e. This is going to change the inner HTML, which is DHTML, span 1, change the inner HTML to you click button 1, do the same thing for button 2 or button 3. So these are events, and they're handled just like we know they are from Windows Forms and other things. That's an on-server click, and that's what's going to get that to work, and it's going to do it on the server side. So it's going to bring that back. It's going to bring this whole page back. And then we have our span right here, ID span 1. This is going to allow us to reference it in the scripting, run at server. And that's all that's to it for each of those buttons. No big deal. We've seen this, so I'm not going to overdo it. And since we call it a web form, that means that we're using a form. Everything is really talking about web form. We have a form in there that's going to do some server-side things, run at server. So when we look at the code, and we ran it already, so we don't have to look at it again, we can view the source. You're going to notice some strange stuff here. This view state hidden field and some other things. And we're going to talk about that because that's interesting what it's doing here. Very interesting. This is the source. Let's analyze this and then look at some other examples.